Alright, I'm back with the good old Destiny 2 video. We are at the beginning of Act 3 here. After 3 weeks off, people were wondering if the exotic mission would launch today. And it is the main story mission of the week. This is a really interesting thing I don't think they've ever done before, where they just straight up made the seasonal story quest the exotic mission itself. When I saw that, I'm like, A, this is definitely going to be soloable, right? And then B, quote-unquote normal players who are not content creators or diehards or journalists may be a little lost depending on how this exotic quest goes, because those are definitely more complex than your average, run a battleground story mission. So I was curious how that would go. In terms of the mission itself, yes, it is definitely soloable on this like base level difficulty with like no modifiers and no timer. Enemies are 1945, like way below you. So this version is definitely soloable. The combat stuff was not terribly hard. I don't know if I actually died from enemies in combat. I died falling off things a lot. Maybe once, and then the boss glitched out, so I sort of just died and reset that. This is it's not the Black Garden, but it is another Vex-based mission when we had the bow mission being Vex-based as well. So it's we've gotten a good amount of these. They kind of threw some Shadow Legion in here just to like be like, oh yeah, the Shadow Legion are here too, looking for something. But mainly it's Vex. The bosses, or well, one of the bosses is Vex, and then one of the bosses is quote unquote Shadow Legion, but really Dread, with one of the Dread sorcerer guys. I don't know their names anymore. Subjugator, and frick, what's man, I'm so out of the loop. Big guy with stick who Tormentor. That's who it is. As a dual boss fight. But before all that, the mission opens with a very lengthy traversal sequence. I spent the most time by far trying to figure out how to get out of the starting area, to the point where like I had to look up someone's stream to see what they did, because like I was like so clueless. There's this whole section at the beginning where like it lets you drop down off the side of the cliff, and like there's a bunch of stuff down there and caves and waterfalls, and you're like, oh, I'm going the right way, and then it just like dead ends, and that is not at all the way you're supposed to go. You got to go way up on the side of the wall and like jump into this traveler ball. I assume probably there's going to be a secret chest in that spot. I don't know what else it would be there for. So that took the longest amount of time. The traversal stuff was not the most difficult. There's a section where there's a lot of like elevators, but and it can set you decently far back if you die. But again, there's no timer here. You're not needing to race through this in any meaningful capacity. But yes, traversal is definitely where I died the most, especially on Warlock, for obvious reasons. And there is an encounter that sort of introduces you to the concept of this, which is 3 rotating, but no, they're not buffs, but like tools that you use. Yes, it reminds me of Braytech stuff a little bit, but one creates a platform out of thin air, one opens like a Vex warp gate, and one like removes a barrier. You're really just using the platform one and the warp gate one most of the time. The barrier one is only like a couple of times. And so first you're kind of navigating around, putting these things in repositories, taking them out, and like navigating around the room that way as very small amounts of enemies spawn and you kill them. So that's kind of an introduction. Then after some more traversal and things, you do the first major boss fight. I thought these boss fights were pretty solid. I like this one the best because I think it was a little more action oriented, where it's 2 bosses. It's the Tormentor and the Subjugator, and you're kind of alternating between them. You're collecting buffs to go through portals that take you to different sections in the map, and you fight one, then you run through the tunnel, and then you come back, it's the other one, and then you end fighting both of them at the same time. Yes, kind of like Dual Destiny, but no clocks involved there. That was a good fight. That was a solid fight. And then there's more traversal. I've kind of lost track of all the traversal segments. This was very long. Like, granted, some of this was like figuring it out for the first time, so that certainly made it a lot longer than it would be otherwise. But yes, it was very long. The final boss, I didn't like quite as much. It's a giant Hydra, it's the Coral Mind, which is not really anything super new or creative. The mechanics here are not about the Hydra itself. The Hydra just is a Hydra that shoots Hydra things. It's all about using the platform making thing and the teleporty thing to build bridges to be able to disable his shield. I think 2 or 3 times. This was weird because mine, I swear to God, it glitched out because you're supposed to like stand in this little circle, and then it creates a trigger point you can shoot and break the shield. The second time, like, I did a DPS phase and it really slapped an immunity shield on very quickly. Like, you know how like health bars are segmented? Like it was like halfway through the first one, and I went to the next circle and I could not get another trigger point to spawn for a shield, so I was just running around like a chicken with my head cut off for 20 minutes. Then I died and reset it, and lo and behold, it worked perfectly normally the second time, so that kind of soured my view on that fight a bit. Again, I'm not sure if I'm missing something there, but I did hear a couple other people may have run into similar things, I'm not sure. And then that is when you get the Coral... what's it called? The Coral Auto Rifle. I forget what it's actually called, but this is the Void Special Ammo Auto Rifle that shoots Wyvern shots. So it shoots Wyvern shots from the hip when you shoot it that way, which are slower but have AoE. And then you can ADS and shoot it like a normal auto rifle, albeit it is like super, super high impact. Like, high impact has lower rate of fire and higher damage. This has really high damage and really low rate of fire, meaning you are almost certainly going to want the Onslaught Catalyst because it's very slow. Otherwise, it almost feels like a rapid-fire scout rifle, which is a bit odd. I don't love it initially here. You are obviously going to do the thing that we do with most of these exotic missions now, where you run expert mode multiple times for catalyst access and stuff, and in my... Destiny downtime here, I don't know if I care to do that this time, and like I'll use the weapon a little more, but I'm not like, oh my god, this thing rules. I'll give it more time, but not something I feel like I immediately need to jump on here. So this was, they said this is one of the biggest exotic missions ever. It is very big. It is extremely big. Is it one of the best exotic missions ever? I don't know if I would even put it in the top half. Big alone does not really make, you know, something good or interesting. Someone said there's going to be like different versions of this that rotate or something. So if that's true, maybe it'll get a lot cooler. Visually, it was cool. I really liked the second boss fight. The third boss fight may have been cooler if it didn't glitch out on me. The central mechanic of swapping around the platform things and the portal things, like I think it's fine to figure out the first time because it's like little puzzle solving, but once you know how to do it, I think it's just going to kind of be annoying to do every time, because like if you're trying to go fast, it's just kind of like a lot of busy work. And you know, some people are saying this kind of feels like a mini raid, in which, you know, that's kind of usually a dungeon's job, and this does kind of feel like a dungeon. Like there's essentially three encounters that you might encounter in a dungeon. That at least 2 of them give you loot, and there's a mini boss and then a big boss. So it does feel like a dungeon in a lot of ways, albeit one that is, at least on normal difficulty, much easier to solo. And you are probably going to want 3 people to do expert. Not that, you know, I'm sure tons of people will solo it who are super good, but just for, you know, ease of use, you probably do want people to do it with you. Because of all the little buff things and whatever swapping around, you may want be with people you can actually talk to. I certainly think it's doable without that. It just might be a little less confusing. The rest of the story this week, so we opened with a cutscene about Maya Sundaresh. So the whole, and like there's a part in the main mission too where apparently she was like experimenting on making her wife into an exo as some means of like reconnecting to the golden age, and like I don't quite understand the connection there, and this Vex storyline with Maya still does not seem terribly compelling, and now we are in, you know, there's 2 weeks left here, and we didn't, she's not a boss, we didn't see her in here, you know, we just saw these cutscenes and heard her voice. So I think that's kind of a missed opportunity for her. I think it was a good idea to start building up a Vex villain that is not just like the hive mind, and I think her idea of making the Vex like more individuals is interesting. But in this exotic mission, there's no real evidence of that. Like all the Vex are just the same. Like there's no special Vex units. There were no special Vex bosses. They just have the little like bright collars around them. Like that's it. So this idea that like she's changed the Vex somehow does not really play out in practice in terms of how they look, how they fight, their behavior. Like none of that. Now there is a specimen quest where you have to kill 100 Vex and then do battlegrounds and whatever. And I think that's how you unlock focusing for the 2 new weapons. I don't know. I'll probably do it later. I can't really be bothered right now. I have to go play a little more Star Wars, which I also don't like that much. I can't tell if I'm burning out or if I just don't really like these games. I don't really like Wukong. I don't really like Star Wars. I don't know. I'm struggling a little bit here, but I don't think I'm like in a funk. I just genuinely don't like those games. Anyway, that's a video for another day. But those are my impressions on the exotic mission. I'm curious to hear what you guys thought about that and the gun itself. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.